Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Quality Standards webinar. My name is Marissa Gallegos. I work on the accreditation team here at NAFCC. This webinar tonight is a webinar that we present monthly as an extension of our regular accreditation series. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. For those of you who are first-time attendees to NAFCC webinars, just so you know, during the presentation, if you have any questions during the material that I'll be presenting tonight, feel free to write in the question box your questions and I'll be answering them throughout the presentation. Before we do get started, if anyone could comment in the question box your name and where you're from, I'd appreciate it to make sure that everyone can see and hear me well. And then also so we can get to know each other a little bit, see who's here tonight. And then this also will give us a couple minutes to see if any other providers trickle in. I know that some come in just at the last minute, so I'll give another minute just to make sure that everyone's coming and that everyone can hear and see okay. Okay, perfect. I have some questions or some comments coming in. I have Angela from Maryland, Cindy, Miranda, Washington, Renata Kyles from Chicago, Sharika from Florida. Awesome, we've got a good mix of people tonight. Alrighty, so just like I mentioned, I do want to go ahead and get started right away. This webinar is a little bit longer than other webinars. Our webinars are typically just 1 hour, but because this webinar has so much content and usually a lot of questions, this one is an hour and a half, and you will receive a email at the end of the presentation. It's usually the next day. You'll get an email and you will have a certificate for an hour and a half webinar. So I do want to go ahead and jump and get started. That way we have lots of time for questions and to get through all the material we have for tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so the goal of this webinar is to help you feel more comfortable and confident about the NAFCC standards. We hope that as we talk about the standards tonight that you are all willing to participate and share your ideas with the group about how you meet the standards. Since there are so many right ways to meet the standards, sometimes providers get confused and are not sure how to meet the standard or wonder if they're doing enough to meet the standard. And so we hope that through tonight's discussion, you leave with lots of ideas and more confidence about how you are implementing the standards. We will first give a brief history of all the standards, what they are and how they are organized. Then we will dive into specific standards, starting with the most missed standards during the observation visit. Then we will cover STAR standards that are often missed or unobserved, and then we will finish up with unstarred standards. Please know, as I mentioned before, that we are limited on time, and I do want to try to get through as much material as possible in this next hour and a half, so I will do my very best to answer all your questions. But if we do have standards that take a lot more time, I might have to skip some of the questions, and if I do by chance skip your question, please email it to me afterwards and I will be happy to answer any unanswered questions. But hopefully we'll get through all of them. The last time we presented this webinar, I was able to get through all of them. So we'll hope that we can do the same tonight. The NAFCC standards are research and expert-based practices that will be the foundation of your high-level quality family child care program. They are practices or habits that you will need to implement into your program to become accredited. They have been shown through peer-reviewed research to be the best in child care practices. The standards were developed through a 4-year consensus building process that included hundreds of providers, parents, resource and referral staff, and other early childhood experts. Key in the development of the NAFCC accreditation standards were 53 community work groups that met across the country. These work groups held a series of discussions to define quality in family child care, to give specific indicators that would help others recognize high quality care in the field, and to envision the NAFCC accreditation process. An extensive review of research findings in the field resulted in the development of the first draft of standards. Hundreds of individuals, diverse in region, race, ethnicity, income, education, and job role, responded to successive drafts of these standards. More than 400 respondents rated the importance of the proposed standards and suggested changes and improvements. Analysis of statistical differences among subgroups was used to design the standards that are truly respectful of differences in cultural values. There is a whole plethora of things that I could tell you about the history of the standards, but I just wanted to give you that brief rundown just so you know that here at NAFCC, We want you to know that these standards were not created lightly, but that every standard we ask you to implement into your program to become accredited is backed up by research, and at least 1,000 other pairs of eyes have reviewed it and feel that any provider, despite location, race, ethnicity, income, and education, can make it happen if they want to have a high quality program. Just for your information also, we do have a body called the Accreditation Council that reviews the standards yearly, and they continue to keep themselves up to date on the latest research to know if revisions or new standards are necessary, as well as work with research groups and universities to make those updates and ensure that there's no bias during the making of important changes and implementations that we have here at NAFCC through the quality standards. The quality standards are organized numerically and divided into 5 content areas. For those who are already accredited or are working on their accreditation, these will sound familiar to you. The groups that they're divided into are relationships, the environment, developmental learning activities, safety and health, and professional and business practices. The quality standards are located in your benchmarks to quality book by level, from easiest to hardest, but they can also be found listed out numerically on our website. I'm going to just pop out of the webinar for just a moment so I can show you how to find those, since this is a popular question I have that I receive by phone. So when you come to our website here, if you go down to the bottom right hand side, the second blue bubble down says NAFCC Accreditation Quality Standards with 2017 updates. If you click on this, you will have all of the standards listed in numerical order and in their respective groups. So here we have relationships starting going 1 all the way down, and then you go environment 2, and thus forth. So if you're looking for a list of them numerically and need them in a way that you can easily read, you can come here to our website if you don't happen to have a benchmarks to quality book. Let me skip back through. Okay. When an observer comes to your home, they will be evaluating you on all of the quality standards that you will find numerically in the quality standards list I just showed you. However, they will be working through a workbook that has them in a slightly different order, which I have listed on the PowerPoint slide, which are routines, relationships, developmental learning activities, environmental checklist, and records. I sometimes have providers get worried because they see that the observer is working in a different book, and then they start to stress out wondering if they were practicing and using the right standards. And I just want to let you know and assure you that they are the same exact standards that you have studied. They're the same standards that are in the list I just showed you. We just organize them differently for observers. That way they can observe them more easily in your program, and so you get a better score. Studying simply from your benchmarks to quality book or from the quality standards list I showed you will help you to be prepared for your observation. Are there any questions about the organization of the quality standards? Great, okay. Here at NAFCC, when we talk about standards, we like to say that there are many good ways that providers can implement the standards. Some examples of quality standards that we have are listed here. For example, in our relationships section, standard 1.8 says the provider recognizes signs of stress in children's behavior and responds with appropriate stress-reducing activities. An example of environmental standard would be the arrangement of the home and the use of space are balanced to meet the needs of both the child care program and the provider's family. And then standard 4.35 in safety and health reads, infants under the age of 1 are placed on their backs for sleeping. As you can see, and as I've read, some of the standards are very straightforward and clear, such as standard 4.35 that infants are to sleep on their backs, while others are very broad. Many providers get confused when they're given a broad standard and often call in to ask me what exactly they need to do to pass that standard. And the answer that I give them is that there are many good ways that you can meet the standard. So just as a practice, I want to go ahead and show you what I mean. So using your question boxes, we're going to do a little game. I want you to answer the question, how do you know when the children in your program are stressed? So go ahead and write the answer to that question in the question box. How do you know when a child is stressed? and I'll read the answers that I received. Okay, Sonia says they start to cry. Okay, got lots of people saying crying. Behavior changes, bad behavior. They're clingy to their parents. Got another behavior changes, discontent, they're mischievous. They show upsetness, they're sad. All right, I've got lots of great answers. Oh, and I think I have a question here that I missed. Let me go up for a second. I have Aisha Batty, who's asking if I have any recommendation for books or resources. As I go through the presentation, I will have some recommendations for you. So yes, go ahead and make sure you have a pen and paper ready. And yes, there'll be lots of recommendations that I'll give during the presentation. And then I had someone else ask about their Accelerate in Illinois doesn't expire, or no, sorry, Barbara Adams asked if my Accelerate doesn't expire until July, how does the renewal process look like? For questions about renewals for Accelerate, that's not something I might be able to help you with, but if you're asking a question about updates, I would recommend that you attend our update webinar, which will be in 2 weeks, and I can answer all of your questions about that. Unfortunately, I don't have time to talk about updates tonight, but if you do have an urgent question, feel free to call me, and I'll give you my contact information at the very end of the presentation. Okay, a few more answers. I said, let's see, Renata said they might be pale. Got some other ones, more crying, they want to be held, behavior changes, their mood isn't stable. Okay, great. Now I want you to answer this next question. How do you help that child with the specific stressor that you mentioned? How do you help them to cope with that stressor? Or what do you do to help them feel less stressed? Rachita says she talks to them. Aisha says water play, reading. Karen says hold them. Maybe turn down the noise if there's some noise. Kamisha says talking. Cindy, communicate. Karen asks, how can I help you? I got some more providers saying comfort and talk. Take them for a walk. Find the cause of the stress and try to redirect. That's a great answer. Music. Snuggles, hugs, cuddles. Personal time with child, reading. Give them your personal attention. Awesome, I'm getting lots of great answers. So as you can see through these questions that I've asked, you can see that there's lots of types of stressors and there's also lots of types of coping mechanisms that you can help your children with when they're having a stressful situation, which they're always bound to have at least sometime during the day or during your week. Each of the examples and solutions that you all came up with would qualify as meeting the standard. As you can see, you all had a plethora of different answers, especially because one answer doesn't always fit all situations. So many of these standards are left up to you to determine what is best for you, your program, and the children you take care of. So thank you so much for participating in that little game, and I hope that was able to help you see how you might be able to meet standard 1.8 in relationships through a variety of different ways. Oh, I just want to share this answer. Renata said, communicate with guardian. That's a really good idea. And then she also said safety first. Make sure that they're not sick, check their temperature, those kind of things. Alrighty, great. There was lots of great answers. Thank you so much. Alrighty, so I do want to go ahead now and get started with talking about all of the standards. And to go ahead and start that, we're going to do one other game. I want you to read these listed standards here. These 4 standards that I have listed here are 4 required or starred standards. I want you to go ahead and take a moment to read through those, and I'll read them with you as well. And I want you to decide and write down which one you think is the most missed standard during the observation visit. So option number 1, the provider served nutritious and sufficient food. Option number 2, the provider reads to children for at least 15 minutes each half day. Option number 3, the provider washes her hands with soap and water. Or option number 4, working smoke, fire, and carbon monoxide detectors are properly installed according to manufacturer's instructions. So go ahead and take a moment to write down which one you think is the #1 missed standard. And then after everyone inputs their answer, I will give you that answer and we'll go ahead and go through all of the most missed STARD standards. And then just as a warning, as I do go through all of these standards, I do want to let you know and make sure that you know that all standards are important. We don't have time to talk about all of them tonight, but we will talk about the most missed ones. And then as we're talking through them, if you have questions, please let me know. If you have recommendations, also write them down so I can share them with others. And then I also recommend if you don't have anything to write down, your notes, I would go ahead and run to the other room and grab a piece of paper and a pencil, or if you have a tablet or a phone that you want to take notes on, I would highly recommend that you do that now, so as we go through these standards, you can take notes as you need them. All right, I got some answers coming in. I have lots of people saying hand washing. I've got a couple saying the reading 15 minutes each half day. I've got a handful of the smoke and fire detectors. So I got a good mix about all of them. Reading 15 minutes a day. Yeah, I think it looks like the #1 answer most people are saying is the fire detectors or the hand washing. So let's go ahead to the next slide and we'll see how many of you were right. The most often missed standard is standard 3.68. The provider reads to all children for at least 15 minutes during each half day. Books are used to stimulate conversation that expands upon children's interest and imagination, to build vocabulary, or to introduce new ideas and information. This required standard is most often scored less than fully met. This standard is critical in preparing children to read and to be successful in school, so that is why this is a STARD and required standard. We recommend that you take time to implement this standard into your program. When an observer is in your home, they will time you once you start reading. So we recommend and we suggest that if this is something you struggle with, that maybe you have a timer with you when you are reading with your children. You can time yourself each day to see if you're meeting the standard and just practicing to make sure that you're making that 15-minute mark. Just know also that if children lose interest, just go ahead and let them go and try again. We know that this standard is sometimes difficult to meet, and we don't want you to stress out about it. Just try your very best to get this done. For example, as we've written here, if children and infants have short attention spans and can't attend to the stories, reading time can occur in brief moments and be comprised of showing and talking about the pictures, colors, and textures in book. And then we also want children who can read independently to spend at least a half an hour each half day engaged in literacy activities such as reading, writing, listening to stories, or performing plays. Cindy asks, is it reading or reading and having interaction within reading, talking about each page? Yes, that does count as reading, especially if you have infants or younger children who still aren't able to read and are needing help being engaged. Yes, you can just talk about the pages and say, oh, look, there's a bunny on the page. What is the bunny doing? The bunny's eating carrots. So yeah, that is perfect way to be engaged in literacy. And then, yeah, just like the standard says as well, it helps to expand on children's interests and their imagination and to build their vocabulary. So that's another reason why it's really important to make sure that you're doing at least 15 minutes during each half day. And then, yeah, just practice with the timer if that's something that's difficult for you. Okay, the second most often missed standard is 4.8. The provider serves nutritious and sufficient food following child and adult care food program guidelines. If parents bring the food, the provider assures that it is nutritious or supplements it. So observers have told me that when a provider misses this, it's usually because they have forgotten milk or they've forgotten bread. And so I just recommend to providers just to keep it basic. Remember your basic food pyramid and to make sure that you have important staples such as milk and bread. To make sure that children are eating nutritiously. I've actually feel like a lot of providers are doing this really well now. So just make sure that you are making sure that you have a well nutritious and balanced meal for your children. And then also, if we know some programs have the parents bring the food, so just make sure that they're doing that as well. And if that's something you struggle with, maybe you teach a class or make a newsletter or something informing parents that, hey, nutrition is really important, and this is helping me maintain my accreditation to give you a good high quality program. The third most often missed standard is comprised of actually 4 different standards that we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to read this page, and then I'll give you the background behind it. So 4.1 reads, children under the age of 3 are in the provider's line of sight always, except when attending to personal needs for up to 5 minutes. The provider assures the safety of all children while attending to her personal needs. And then 4.2 and 4.3 talk about older children. So 4.2 reads, children age 3 and older may be out of the provider's line of sight for short periods of time if the provider is close by and listens carefully. And then 4.3 reads, children under the age of 6 are never inside or outside by themselves. When children are inside, the provider's inside. When the children are outside, the provider is outside. So where there are issues in regards to these standards are when there are infants or children under the age of 3 that are not in the provider's line of sight. And then the other issue is when there are children both inside and outside, when they should all be either inside or all be outside. So exceptions could be during transition. So if you're transitioning from inside to outside, don't worry if it takes you a couple of minutes to get all the kids out. We understand that. That's a normal transition. So maybe just make sure the older kids go out first and then have the younger kids follow closely to you, so you make sure that the little kids and the infants are in your line of sight always. The other exception for the line of sight is when infants are sleeping. This is one that has caused a lot of confusion. If you can, the ideal is to be able to be in line of sight, to always be able to see the infant. But when they are sleeping, you need to at least do a 15-minute check. Visual monitors are not permitted as a substitute for a visual check. It does have to be your eyes seeing the infants, and the children under age 8 months, seeing them with your own eyes, but you can use monitors to view them while they're sleeping during those 15-minute checks, and we do highly encourage and recommend that. And then you can also use monitors to be able to hear children, since you do want to always be able to be in hearing sight when they are not hearing sight, but in hearing distance while they're sleeping. And then the only other exception as well is if you have your own children, they may sleep in their own bed regardless of age. Are there any questions in regards to these standards about line of sight or about how monitors can be used with these standards? I've had a provider ask once if they can use mirrors. No, you cannot use mirrors. You have to have the physical line of sight. You have to be able to see them every 15 minutes. And then if they're not sleeping, always in line of sight for children who are under 3. But yes, monitors are a great way to be able to have constant contact with them visually on top of doing your 15-minute check. All right, if there aren't any questions, I'll go ahead and go on, but if you do have questions, feel free to ask them. Okay, the fourth most often missed standard is 4.38. Working smoke, fire, and carbon monoxide detectors are properly installed according to manufacturer's instructions. Smoke and fire devices are on each floor of the home. Smoke and fire devices and carbon monoxide detectors are adjacent to or where children sleep. Monthly maintenance checks of all equipment are conducted and recorded, including batteries being changed annually or as needed. This one is often scored not met. Be sure, it's important to know that even if your home is fully electric, you do want to have these do want to have a CEO detector in your home. They're affordable and very easy to install, and if you don't know how to install them, there's usually instructions, or you can call a friend, or I think the fire department even will help you install them if you need help installing them. Alrighty, so those are the four most missed standards. So the game we played, they actually all are START standards that do need to be met that are often missed, with the number one standard being the reading for 15 minutes. So make sure that those four especially are ones that you're meeting to full criteria. We're gonna go ahead and move on to some other START standards that are often scored less than fully met. The next one we'll talk about is 4.34. Children are never left alone on a changing table. The provider keeps one hand on the child where diapering occurs on a non-porous mat on the floor. So what often happens is the provider's changing the baby, the diapers are just out of reach, and so they go to they turn around, walk to pick up the diaper, and they've taken their hands off the child. So just make sure that the diapers and the wipes are close by, that you always have one hand on the child, and you'll be able to meet this standard perfectly. Okay, another START standard that is often not observed is 4.39. A fully charged and operable ABC type fire extinguisher is in plain sight and available in or near the kitchen and on each floor of the home used for childcare. All extinguishers are inspected and tagged annually. Non-rechargeable extinguishers shall be replaced according to the manufacturer's instruction. Observers sometimes don't see the standards. They might just not want to be snoopy, and so they don't want to walk around and peek at your pantry and things like that. So make sure that you have your fire extinguisher in plain sight, or that if she asks you about it in the interview, that you can tell them, yeah, my fire extinguisher is here, it's in plain sight. But usually they'll be able to see them. If not, it's just because it wasn't maybe not in plain enough of sight, so we want to let them know. Something that is important to know, I know the last time I presented this webinar, I had a lot of questions because some states, I guess, don't want the fire extinguisher to be in children's sight, or they don't want it to be very accessible to children. And so I had lots of questions about whether they could put it in the pantry or not. So just make sure if you do have it in a place that's a little more inconspicuous, so children don't touch it, that it is at least in the sight of an adult. Because when there's an accident that happens, maybe you're in a different room and you might not see it, but a parent or an assistant might have to take care of a fire. So you always want to make sure that it's somewhere where an adult can see it and can access it. So if you do choose to put it, for example, in the pantry, put it right in the door of the pantry, or make sure you put a sign to, or whatever you need to do to make sure that it is in plain sight and that any adult who's in the home will be able to see it and use it. You can also ask your local fire department for their recommendations on where to place it, but just make sure that it is where it is easily accessible and where it can be seen. Karen asks, how do you inspect if it's full? You know, I really don't know. I'm not tech savvy when it comes to fire extinguishers. I know that they usually come with instructions, and those instructions might be able to tell you how to do an inspection. But worst case scenario, if you're not sure, you can always ask your fire department, or good old Google will probably tell you how you can inspect it. But to be honest, I do not know how to inspect a fire extinguisher, but I know that they usually come with instructions on how to do so. And then also, like I said, fire department is always helpful with those kind of things. Are there any other questions about this standard or any standards that we've covered so far? Alrighty, let's continue. Okay, another required standard that is often scored not observed is the first aid kit. So the provider has a first aid kit readily accessible but out of reach of children, and the first aid kit should include but is not limited to first aid instructions, disposable non-porous gloves, soap and water, tweezers, bandage tape, sterile gauze, scissors, a thermometer, infant safe if infants are enrolled in your program, adhesive bandages, cold packs, and CPR mouth guard. So just double check and make sure that your first aid kits have these items, and then any other item that the children in your specific program may need. Barbara maybe answered Karen your question. She says getting the rechargeable fire extinguishers, ensure that it's full. So that's a good advice. Thank you, Barbara. Maybe that helps some other providers too. All right, does anybody need to take a picture or write these things down, or can I go ahead and skip to the next slide? If not, if you don't have time to write all this down, I can go ahead and go back slides if you needed to. I have Angela ask, will the person doing the observation be a registered provider in your state? Most of the time, yes. Most of the time the observer will be from your state, or they'll be from a neighboring state, and they are registered. Most of them are registered providers, and most of them are actually accredited providers as well, that who've also taken training to be observers. There are a few people, I think, that may not be accredited or who have been accredited, but yes, all of them will be registered child care providers in your area, or if not in your state, in a neighboring state. Renate, in regards to fire extinguishers, says always know where you can have your fire extinguishers, or always know where they can be serviced. That's great advice. Alexis is saying that some of them have metal rings that tell you what, if they're good to go or not. Rachita's asking, would the observer interview my substitute? No, they'll only have the interview with you, the accredited provider, whoever's working towards their accreditation. They won't talk to your substitute. When you do have an observer in your home, it is a good idea to have a substitute there present, so they can help you out while you're doing your interview. But if you can't have a substitute or an assistant there to help you during an observation day, they'll try to do the interview during a nap time or some kind of quiet downtime. That way they can get the interview done as easily as possible. Alrighty, I'll go on to the next slide, and if you're still needing this slide later, I can always come back. Okay, standard 4.14, there's a working telephone, and emergency phone numbers are easy to access by all caregivers. This one's sometimes not observed because of the emergency phone numbers not being visible. So make sure that you have parents' daytime numbers, and then the following local emergency numbers: the ambulance, police, fire department, poison control, a nurse, doctor, other medical consultant, emergency backup caregiver, 2 backup contacts for each child. So make sure that this is either posted, for example, on your fridge or your bulletin board, or have it in your binder if you have a child care binder where you like to keep your documents. Just make sure that these are in a place that that is visible, that your observer can see that you have all of these things listed. And then phone-wise, it doesn't necessarily have to be a landline phone. You can use your cell phone, and that would work just fine. Just make sure that it's working, that it has minutes, or you have a plan to make sure it works, that you're not going to run out of minutes, or however you choose to use your plan, make sure it's usable. Okay, perfect, Karen. Glad I answered your question. Yes, so you don't necessarily have to have a landline. It can be a cell phone, or it can be a landline, or it can be both. It could be a business line, just as long as you have a phone that works. Okay, this is a really important standard, 4.78. This one is often not observed. Prescription medication is only administered from the original container with the original label intact, listing the child's name. And prescription directions are always followed. The provider obtains written permission of the parent and administers medication as prescribed by the child's healthcare professional. Non-prescription remedies may be administered with both written directions and permission from the parent or guardian. The first dose of any medication, including prescribed medications, topical ointment, and other non-prescription remedies, is first administered outside of the child care. That last part of the standard just means that you'll never give a child Tylenol if they've never had Tylenol before. You'll never give them a certain ointment if they've never had that ointment before. And that's just because you want to make sure that you and the parent know that whatever medication you're giving to them, it's not going to have a negative effect or an allergy. So make sure that you have written permission from a parent if they start to look ill, that you have some sort of written permission that says you can use baby Tylenol or you can use any non-prescription remedy. It has to be, you have to have permission from the parent, and then as well they have to have had it at least once before, so that you and the parents know that there won't be any negative reaction if you give them that type of medicine. And then of course prescription medication can only be administered from the original container, and then you have to have prescription directions, and you have to have permission from the parent. In most states you have to also have a license or permission to be able to administer that type of medication. Okay, Marcella asks, if you don't give medication, how do you show this? All you'll really need to do is if you, I know that a lot of providers, when they fill out their enrollment forms, they'll have a form that says, I do use these types of medications, I need permission to be able to use it, or you can say, I don't use medication in my program, and then just have a parent sign a form that says, I'm aware that you don't administer medication in my program, anything like that to show whether or not you use medication. That is totally fine. And you can even mention that in your interview, the hour-and-a-half interview that you have with your observer. If that's a concern to you, you can say, hey, just so you know, I don't administer medication, so I'll meet the standard just with not having to use medication. I hope that answered your question, Marcella. Are there any other questions in regards to this standard? Alrighty, we're speeding through. Okay, more required standards, often scored, not observed. 4.89, children always sit down to eat meals and drink beverages. Meals and snacks are not rushed, nor are children forced to stay at the table for more than a few minutes after they've finished eating. No use of screen media at these times. So reasons why these are not observed or not met, make sure that children are always sitting down. Sometimes children run off with their cheese stick or whatever, their juice box, and you want to make sure that they're eating sitting down always. That just prevents choking and accidents. And then also no screen time. Sometimes providers show the screen, and so that's why they don't meet the standard. Standard 4.81, food including breast milk is stored, prepared, and served to children in a safe and sanitary manner. Solid food is cut into cubes no larger than 1/4 of an inch for babies and 1/2 inch for toddlers. So you don't need to panic about this one. You don't need to sit with a ruler and make sure that it's that big or small, but just be aware that you're not feeding infants and toddlers amounts that are too big for them. And then it's just, the reasoning is because we don't want any choking, we don't want any accidents in regards to eating. So just make sure that you're giving them good bite sizes. Okay, so those are all of our STAR standards that we'll be talking about tonight. There might be a couple others scattered through, and if there are, I'll let you know. But now we're going to go ahead and start talking about some of the non-STAR standards that are just as equally as important. Just to let you know, if I do see any other STAR standards, I will let you know that they're starred. But are there any other questions about the STAR standards that we've already mentioned? I'll take a minute just to answer any questions about those, and I can go back to any of the slides if there's any lingering questions. Cindy asks if they can have music at meals. Yes, you can have music. Just make sure there's not a screen or a television screen so they can see anything. But yes, you can have music during eating time. That's fine. Alrighty, if there aren't any other questions about the ones we've covered thus far, I'll go ahead and continue on, but please let me know if there are any other questions. Okay, so getting into our non-starred standards, 3.29. If children wear diapers, the provider does a visual check at least once every 2 hours and changes them as needed if wet or soiled. So we want you to check their diapers because diaper rashes happen. Sometimes children aren't as visual or aren't as noisy when they dirty their diapers, so just make sure that you're checking their diapers visually every 2 hours and change them when they need to be changed. Okay, a routine standard that is often scored not met. Our children's hands are washed with soap and running water and dried with individual disposable or single-use cloth towels at these following times. When children arrive, before and after handling food or playing in water or with sand or Play-Doh that is used by more than one person. You want to wash hands after toileting, diapering, contact with bodily fluids, handling animals, cleaning, handling garbage, and playing outdoors. Alcohol-based sanitizer is a suitable alternative for children over the age of 24 months only when running water is unavailable. Pre-moistened wipes do not effectively clean hands and should not be used as a substitute for washing hands with soap and water. The reasoning for the standard is to prevent illness, to prevent the children in your program from getting sick, and also to help you stay healthy. So make sure that you are washing your hands at all of these times. This one's often scored not met because providers don't wash children's hands upon arrival. So I know that some providers will have the sanitizer right there, so when the children walk in the door, they just give them a squirt of hand sanitizer and they can wash. Otherwise, for the little ones, they'll just have to rush them to where there's water, soap and water, and wash them really quickly. But please make sure that you have noted all of these times that you'll need to wash with soap and water. Cindy asked, would water barrels be able to be used as hand washing if we have soap by it? Yeah, as long as the water is clean. If you're taking the water out of the barrel and then pouring it onto their hands, and then each scoop of water, if ever you choose to use the water barrel, as long as each water administration is clean water, then yeah, that would be appropriate and that would be fine. Okay, perfect. Yep. So yeah, that's a great idea. And I know a lot of providers like to use those water barrels, especially outside. That's usually easier to wash hands outside with a barrel or with some kind of clean water source. So Perlene asked, what about infants? So yes, you do need to wash infants' hands upon arrival and then before and after the times listed here on the PowerPoint. So I know that's a little bit tricky, but yes, you'll want to make sure that you wash with soap and water. And I think it's especially important for infants because they are so young and their immune systems are still being strengthened. So we want to make sure that they stay clean. Alrighty, any other questions about this or any other suggestions of how you meet this standard? Alrighty, let's move on then. Standards relating to physical activity. 3.25, the provider takes the children outdoors when neighborhood conditions are safe, one to two or more times during the day for a total of at least 60 minutes per day, weather permitting. So whether you want to make sure there's no active precipitation, extreme weather conditions, or advisory warnings that may affect the health or safety of children. During colder and warmer weather temperature and conditions, children are dressed appropriately for active outdoor play. If your state happens to have different regulations that are above NAFCC, always follow the higher law. So I know that some states, the provider once told me that their state doesn't let them go out if it's less than 32 degrees. Another state said that their licensing doesn't let them go out when it's less than 40. So make sure that whatever your state says, if it's higher law than what we have at NAFCC, that you follow that. But yes, just be self-aware and self-conscious of when you're taking your children out, and then make sure that they're getting at least 60 minutes per day outside. And so I just want to take a minute. We haven't had too many suggestions come in, but take a moment in the question box to write down maybe some activities that you do outdoors, and give some ideas to all of the providers who are listening tonight. I know that sometimes providers have a hard time getting those 60 minutes, especially when you have a large variety of ages in your children, or you feel that some kids just aren't as active as others. So if you want to take a moment to write down some activities that you do while you're outside, I'll share it with the group. That way everyone can write down some new ideas that they might be able to take home tonight. Tiffany says water play, sand play, functional fitness. Karen says they like to go on nature walks. Oh, and they have an outdoor classroom that's locked, so that keeps everybody together. That's a great idea. Carrie says bubbles, gardening, bird watching. Sonia says exercising, bubbles, parachute walks. Oh, that's cool. Angela says makes obstacle courses. Matt with books. Rashida says dancing together. Renate says they like to hop, skip, run, play ball, play in the sand. Karen says painting sticks and rocks outside. My son, he likes to paint rocks with just a paintbrush and water, so that's a really easy activity. Bertha says bubbles, chalk, water beads, painting. Let's see, got lots of them coming in now. Catching balls, mud kitchen, looking for insects, water play, nature walk, bubbles, gardening, chalk, music, jump rope, collecting natural resources for projects, looking for airplanes, block play, scarf play, music activities, dancing, kitchen, using nature. These are lots of great ideas. I hope that if some of you struggle with this or are looking for new ideas, that you're listening and writing these down, because there's lots of good ones. Digging in the dirt, block play. Thank you so much for sharing all of these. These are lots of great ideas that will help lots of providers. Chalk on rocks. Okay, perfect. Thank you for your participation, everybody. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. Oh, someone says bicycles. I have a question. Cindy asked, it was mentioned that if we have our childcare in a sunroom with a room of windows, this can be used as outside play if windows are open and coats on. Is this true? Yes, I believe so. Sunrooms, yes, they're still outside. You just want to make sure, in order to meet other standards, that everyone is together in the sunroom. I know that sometimes there's been an issue where children will be outside and some are outside and some are in the sunroom. So just make sure that they're either all outside or all in the sunroom, since they're technically two different rooms. But yes, I believe sunrooms do count as outdoor play. Alrighty, if there are not any other questions or suggestions, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. Okay, standards relating to some more related to physical activity. 3.81, the provider encourages children to dance or use movement as a method of self-expression. It sounds like a lot of you are already meeting this one, doing lots of dancing. 3.55 is a STAR standard. Children are engaged in large motor activities for at least 30 minutes in each half day, either indoors or outdoors. These activities may occur at one time or may be accumulated during each half day. On top of having those 60 minutes of outdoor play, you want to also make sure that there are large motor activities. Those can be indoors or outdoors, but make sure that you have large motor activities. If you have any suggestions for large motor activities, go ahead and comment in the question box, and I'll share them with everybody else. Since I know that that's a STAR standard that's often not observed, we can share some ideas with the group. Okay, the next section we'll talk about are some standards in regards to emotions and feelings that are often not observed. These are usually not observed because either the situation doesn't arrive or, yeah, mostly just because of that, they don't have an opportunity, you don't have an opportunity to show this. So if this happens to be the case, as I'm reading some of these, and it just doesn't happen or occur at the time when your observer's there. Just be ready to give a response to how you would react in a situation as such. And during your interview, you can talk about that with your observer. So 1.8 says the provider recognizes signs of stress in children's behavior and responds with appropriate stress-reducing activities. We talked about that in our first activity at the beginning of the presentation. 3.33 is a STARD standard. It says guidance is positive and appropriate for the developmental abilities of each child and is used to help children gain self-control and take responsibility for their own behavior. 1.19, the provider supports children in developing friendships with each other. The provider supports children in finding positive ways to interact with others. And 1.20, the provider supports children in identifying and describing their own feelings and those of others. One recommendation, I don't remember who it was who asked about books and recommendations, but one recommendation that I give about emotions and feelings, if this is something that you struggle with, there's a book that I really like by John Gottman, and it's called Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. I'll go ahead and write it in the chat, that way you can have it for future reference, where you have another slide full of emotion standards, so we'll talk about those. But if emotions and helping children recognize and understand their emotions is something that's hard for you, or something that you struggle with, I highly recommend this book. I'm just typing it right now so you can have it in your chat. Okay, I just sent it to you. If you're needing some good reading, that's a really great book and a great resource. Okay, this next slide continues on with emotions and feelings. 3.39, the provider helps children to gain awareness of other people's feelings and understand how their own actions affect others. The provider supports children in resolving conflicts and disagreements by assisting them as needed in communicating their feelings and finding solutions. Providers often respond that they tell children to say they're sorry during the observation and in response to an interview if this doesn't happen to show up during the time of your observation. Always remember to validate the children's feelings and to give a child the opportunity to find a solution. It's always good to help children problem solve and to understand that their actions affect other people and that they need to fix the negative consequences of their actions. 3.41 says the provider helps children learn to respect the possessions, personal space, and activities of others. And 3.35, the provider minimizes toddlers' frustrations through redirection. Karen says, what about emotional cards that kept throughout the room for the children? I think I know what you're referring to. Yeah, emotional cards would work. If I understand what you're referring to, you just mean that when a child is acting out, you ask them what card are you acting like right now, and they can say, well, I'm the angry card or I'm the sad card. But yes, that would be a great way to help them understand their emotions. Okay, perfect. Oh, Bertha says she lost connection. I can reread the slide again if you had missed this slide. So basically we were just talking about some more standards in regards to emotions and feelings, talking about making sure it's important that children understand the consequences of their emotions, that sometimes their negative emotions negatively impact other children. So we want to make sure that they know how to respect other people's space, other people's activities and possessions, and then also validating a child's feelings and giving them an opportunity to find a solution. So if they're angry, help them understand, oh, you're angry because this child took your toy, aren't you? Or, oh, you're sad because so-and-so doesn't want to play with you. Help them to understand the feelings that they're feeling and to validate those feelings and not to brush them off and say things such as, oh, you're angry, let's go get you a cookie so you feel better. That would be dismissive and not helping the child understand that they're sad or they're angry and find a positive and an appropriate solution to help them deal with those emotions. Aisha says, just acknowledge the feelings. Yes. I think feelings are really hard for some people, especially stronger emotions, but yes, it's really important, especially at this young age, to help them understand their emotions. I know that this is a huge responsibility of parents as well, that parents should be doing this as well, but it is important for us as high quality child care providers to be helping parents with this as well. Okay, Marcella asks, how do you help an infant under 15 months? That's a great question. I'll open up that question to all of you providers. How would you help an infant under 15 months who's struggling with emotions? That's a hard question. Before I give my answer, I'll let some providers respond. Cindy asked, will we get copies of slides after the webinar? Yes, I can provide copies of the slides afterwards if that's something you're interested in. I usually post them on our Facebook pages, which I'll mention at the end of the webinar if someone requests them. So I can do that, or I can also email it to you, Cindy. Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so do I have any people that want to help our friend Marcella out? How do we help infants under 15 months? I think with infants, my answer would be redirecting. I know that with infants and toddlers, it's very hard to help them understand their emotions still. So redirecting is the best way. Say, oh no, you're angry. You can still help acknowledge it. Say, oh, you're not feeling good right now. Oh, you're angry. Oh, you're sad. Let's go try a different activity. That redirecting is an okay activity for younger children. I have a couple answers coming in. Aisha says feely books to help them keep calm. I really like that answer. Rashida says be affectionate, hold them, show them your concern. I think talking to infants is a really good idea too. Talking and babbling with them, just helping them understand, shushing them, listening to music with them. So Jill says sensory play. Alexis, yes, I'll send you the PowerPoint slides as well. And Tara, I'll send you as well. I'll go ahead and send it to all that request it, but I'll also put it on our Facebook pages that I will mention at the end of the PowerPoint, just in case I miss anybody, because I do want to make sure you all get these. Okay, Tiffany. Also, I am recording this session, and I will be providing this video afterwards, and I'll put it on Facebook as well as on YouTube, so you can access all this information through that source as well. Okay, Tiffany Workman, Miranda Washington, Karen. Okay, I got all you written down. Alrighty, are there any other recommendations that we want to give to Marcella on how to help infants under 15 months? Okay, yep, Perlene, I have you, and Renata, I also have you. I'll just go ahead and send it to everybody who's participating tonight. I'll email you. When I email you the your certificates and your proof of attendance, I'll go ahead and send out another email with this information as well. Renata says pretend play. Tara, talking them through their feelings. All great answers. Thank you so much. I hope that helped you, Marcella, with knowing how to help younger infants. Okay, Cynthia, I got you too. I'll make sure you get those. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that helped Marcella. Okay, we're going to move on from the feelings standards unless there's any other questions or comments that want to be made about that. Tamitha, I've got you. Okay, the next standards that we'll talk about are some that are scored not observed, 3.36. As opportunities arise, the provider allows children to experience the natural consequences of their own negative behavior in a safe, non-threatening manner. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about feelings. The provider helps children understand and respect people who are different from themselves. The provider responds factually to children's curiosities about similarities and differences among people. Sometimes this just doesn't occur, or you don't have the opportunity to talk about this, so have an answer or response ready for the interview. Many providers, in order to respond to 3.46, will say something along the lines of, we're all the same on the inside, like books. Maybe our outsides are different, but our insides are the same. Another provider might say something like, oh, this child uses crutches because his legs don't work. It's factual, and it helps address the child's questioning concern, but also being factual and respectful. Just practicing responses will help you to prepare for this question in your observation visit if you don't happen to have the opportunity to show it while the observer's there. A response that you might give for 3.36 is if a child spills a cup of juice or something, you help them clean it up, or you say, uh-oh, that fell, let's clean it up together, so they know that there was something that happened, and then there's a consequence that, oh, it spilled, we need to clean it up. So those are just some ideas to help you articulate those into words if you don't have the opportunity to show that in your observation. Rosetta, I will email it to you. Okay, some learning activities that are often scored not observed. The provider builds on children's emerging interest in print and writing. And then 3.71, children learn math and science concepts in the context of everyday activities, such as setting the table, preparing food, sorting mail, cooking, gardening, playing games. You can match, sort, arrange things in a sequence, count, measure, recognize, and create patterns. For 3.7, I didn't finish it, but there were some examples to help in print and writing or scribbling, recognizing signs and alphabet letters and sounds, writing names, notes and stories, labeling drawings, making books, or writing in journals. When the provider comes, you should try to have a typical day. Considering that children should be offered free play and direct their own activities, it is likely that some of these learning activities won't be observed, and that's just because there's not enough time in your day to do everything. So that's why some of these things are not observed sometimes, but make sure that you at least have materials that are available and inviting, so that if you don't happen to get to these, at least an observer can see, oh look, they've got crayons and paper out, so that way they can meet that standard. They are meeting that standard by having those things available. Or, oh, it looks like they have a cooking set out, or they have puzzles and gardening out. So a child during free play could possibly go to that if they want. But if an observer happens to not see those or not recognize those, you always have the opportunity during your interview when they ask you, like, hey, I didn't see this. You can say, oh, well, I do this on Monday or Tuesday, we go up to the garden, or I do have those things available during the day, so they can do that during free time if you just don't happen to have time during the day to get all of these learning activities done. Karen says, if not observed, but I have proof of making books from other months, yeah, that would be great. That would help you to meet this standard. You can show the observer during the interview, like, look at these great books that we made. This is how I met and continue to meet standard 3.7, because it's helping emerge their interest in print and writing. Especially if you can say something like that, that will really impress an observer to know that, oh, you did this activity because it's helping you complete that standard and it's helping them emerge their interest in that. They'll be really impressed if you can recite that back to them. So yes, we know that there's not enough time to do all these activities, but if you can show proof that you have done it, or you continue to do it, or you have materials available, that will help you meet the standard. Karen asks, what about observations on the children? I don't know if I understand your question. Observations that you've made about the children? Is that your question? If you have proof of that, yeah, you could show that as well. If I'm not understanding your question correctly, let me know. Okay, perfect. Yes, so if you've made observations about the children and you have a portfolio of that, yes, the observation interview time would be a great time to show off your portfolio of how your children have progressed. And you can say, look, when this child started, they weren't able to write their name, but now you can see here in my portfolio that they are able to write their name now. Yeah, those are great things that you can show off to the observer. Are there any other questions about these learning activities? One learning activity that's often not, oh, sorry, I got another one. Marcel asks again, how do you do this with 15 months and under? So with some of these, it will be harder with younger children, and to meet these standards, it doesn't have to necessarily mean that every single child is doing all these things. We hope so, but they're going to be more looking Oh, sorry, I think I missed one. They're going to be looking more in general that you're doing those things, but for children 15 months and under, for writing, for print and writing, you can help them scribble. I know that some 14 and 15-month-olds already are trying to scribble, or they like to hear their sounds in alphabet letters, so you could practice alphabet letters with them. That would be a good way to help those children there. Even infants like to hear if you sing the alphabet to them, they like to hear alphabet letters and try to coo sounds to you. So that could be a way you could meet that standard with younger children. And then math and science is a little bit trickier, but if you do blocks with them, that would be arranging things. They like to, infants and younger children like to see the patterns and colors when you move them around, so that could be something you could try as well. If anyone else has any other ideas, go ahead and jump in. Karen says for 15 months they like to use chalk eggs. That's a good idea. But yeah, if you have any other suggestions for Marcella, let us know. Go ahead and comment below. Cindy asks, can we have our standards with notes we write down on each one to allow us to give her an answer easier? And can I show anything needed to go along with, or just go off thoughts at the time? Yes and yes and yes. So if you have a benchmarks to quality book, it helps a ton, because when you get to the interview part of the observation, and if the observer says, you know, I just didn't really see the standard, that's when you can pull out your benchmarks book and you can say, you know what, I've been working on that really hard. Before I wasn't meeting it, but now I'm meeting it, and I do it in this way, this way, this way. So yeah, you can use your benchmarks to quality or your notes to help you during the interview, or yes, you can come up with something spontaneously from your mind if it's something you actually do. So for example, if they didn't see standard 3.70, that's when you can pull out your notebook, or you can pull out what Karen was asking about, like, I have my portfolio, this is showing how my child has improved on the reading or writing, so that could be something we could use as well. So yes, for any, let me take a step back. When you have an observer come to your home, they'll be observing you for about 4 hours, and then you'll have another hour where you have interview time, and during that time, that's where you can talk and shine as much as you want about your program. So anything that the observer wants to ask you about, or maybe they didn't see, you can always show your notes and show your knowledge, and counter with any observation that they may have seen or may not have seen. So don't stress out too much about meeting every single standard if you feel your time is limited, because it is. The interview is your time to show off and show your knowledge about those other things that may not have been observed. Judy says, Judy Mayfield says, you can also post on your picture wall of paintings with their name and age on it in the lower corner of their artwork. That's a great way to show off their work and to show that they've been working on their art. That's a great idea, Judy. Thank you. So Bertha asked 5 hours total. Yes, it ranges about 4.5 to 5.5 hours. Usually the first 3.5, 4 hours is pure observation. They just sit in the corner. They're kind of like a fly on the wall. They just watch and observe and mark down as many standards as they see being fulfilled. And then in the last hour, hour and a half, you have a chance. They have some scripted interview questions that they'll ask you, and then you'll also have a chance. They might ask you questions like, hey, I didn't see this standard met. Can you tell me how you meet it? And then you have a chance to talk about it, or talk about anything you want in your program, or to show off your portfolio, show off your paperwork and the other documents that we'll talk about later in this webinar. So yeah, you'll have plenty of time to do all those things. Barbara says matching, simple sink and float. Oh yeah, babies love water. Sinking and floating things, they love that. That would be a great activity. Alrighty, we're gonna go on to some other activities. Learning activities that are often not observed. Children have opportunities indoors and outdoors to explore nature and the physical environment. Some of these you already mentioned when we talked about outdoors, like planting seeds, watching insects, taking care of plants, playing in the water, sand, playing with cars, balls, ramps. 3.73 says the provider encourages children age 3 and older to observe and make predictions about things in the learning environment using language, hands-on activities, analysis, reasoning, problem solving, and experimenting by asking why, how, and what if questions. So this is a really great STEM opportunity if you like STEM and implementing STEM activities into your programs. You can say, why is the tree green? Why is that caterpillar crawling away? Why? What if Sammy goes and runs into that corner? What will Charlie do? Will Charlie chase after him? Will Charlie leave him alone? It's just a good time to have those kind of questions and solving with why, how, and what if questions. That helps them with their scientific reasoning. Art is an activity that's often not observed, and this is mostly because lots of providers have art days, and they might not have art day on the day that an observer comes. So a way that you can meet this is just making sure that you have the materials out and ready to go, like we mentioned with other activities. Sometimes these are partially met. Observers write down that maybe art was pre-cut and teacher directed, but that there was open-ended painting or coloring displayed. Maybe children were able to create, but there were only red crayons provided. Just little picky things like that. So make sure that if art doesn't happen during the specific day that the observer's there, that you at least have the materials ready. And just know that if you don't happen to be doing all these activities such as art or the other activities that we've talked about thus far, that it's not the end of the world. You at least need to meet 90% of these standards at the time of the observation, and then of course you have the time of your interview to say, well, we do art on these days, and I do have art materials out and ready to go if a child does want to do art. These two are often paired together just because 3.76 talks about doing art, and then 3.77 talks about praising the artwork. And so you can't complete 3.77 and praise artwork if there's no artwork to praise. So just make sure that you're doing that. Also with 3.77, providers need to be careful with how they talk about children's artwork. We know that art is in the eyes of the beholder, and that sometimes children will draw something or create something that might not be pleasing to your eye, but that we're still going to praise them and use words of affirmation, encourage them, even if in your preference it doesn't look pretty or doesn't look realistic. We're going to always encourage children with the artwork that they produce. Okay, got a couple questions in. Karen says, at what age is it required to have the art supplies out? There isn't a requirement. There isn't a standard that says by age 3 they're doing artwork or anything like that, but you do want to, in order to meet this standard, it says most art activities are open-ended and child-directed. Children decide what they would create and how they would do it. So, so yeah, just keeping that in mind. Coloring books might be easier for littler children, or pre-cut materials that aren't sharp. Little children can just hold and play with maybe, while older children are making noodle art or whatever you decide to do. But yeah, there isn't a required age to meet these standards. Aisha says, we made picture books after Nature Walk on our field trip. Oh, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cute. You'll have to send me a picture. I love it, by the way, just a side thing. I love it when you guys send me pictures. I don't often get pictures from providers, but when I do, it makes my day. The other day I got a picture. The provider had made, like, they took a yellow band of paper and they put a little orange beak on it and googly eyes, and so all the children had little duck helmets, little duck bands on their heads. It was super cute. So yeah, if you ever want to send me a picture, I love to see them. I love to see what you're doing. Or if you want to show your observers the pictures of things you've done. So like Aisha, if you want to show those picture books, to your observer to let them know that you're meeting these activities. Those are great ideas. Okay, some other standards less than fully met. Standard 375 says the provider sets out inviting art materials based on the children's developmental levels. Additionally, children age 3 and older have direct access to basic art materials during free player opportunities. So I guess this would be the only standard, Karen, that does have a little bit of an age requirement, but it's just saying that they have access to it, not that they have a specific thing they have to do with it. 4.102, toys and services are cleaned and sanitized regularly. Toys that are mouthed by a child are not used by others until sanitized. For this standard, if a child happens to mouth a toy and then they put it down, just pick it up off the floor and you can put it in a bucket and wash it later. You don't necessarily need to wash and sanitize it in that very moment, but just make sure that another child doesn't go and mouth that toy directly after the other child. That's just to keep people, or to keep children safe and healthy. 4.51, secure and safety gates or barriers close off access to all stairs, adjoining areas used for children under the age of 4. Oh, let me pause for a second. Karen asks about toys and services. Can this be on the counter? And I have all ages. Oh, we're talking about art? Sorry. Can this be on the counter? Oh, art supplies. Sorry, I thought you were referring to toys being sanitized. Let me go back and read that question again. Karen is asking if art supplies can be on the counter. Yeah, wherever you want to have those art supplies available to children is totally fine. Just make sure it is available. And then for toys and surfaces being cleaned and sanitized, yeah, just stick them up on the counter or in a bucket where other children can't reach them until you have a chance to sanitize them. And then let me read 4.51 again. Secure and safety gates or barriers close off access to all stairs, adjoining areas used for children under the age of 4. No pressure gates or accordion gates with openings large enough to entrap a child's head. Safety gates are hardware installed and can be easily opened by adults in emergency. So just make sure that the gates you have in your homes are safe, that a child can't get their head stuck in it, that they can't open them. So if children fall down the stairs, we don't want that. Aisha says, we follow safety rules at art time to stay on the art table. Can't walk with colored pencils or paintbrushes. That's a great idea. That keeps children safe. And then that you're also giving a direct and specific time for art activities. Thank you, Aisha, for sharing your ideas. Yeah, and if anyone else has ideas or suggestions for things that they do, please let us know. That's why we're here tonight, so we can hear all your ideas as well. Alrighty, we're almost done. I got 5 more slides for you. Hang in there with me. You're doing great. Record standards need to be met. The rest of the webinar is going to be mostly based off of these record standards. The thing with record standards is that it's a very small section. If you remember from one of the first slides I showed you, that the observers, the standards that they're looking at, they're just in a little bit different order. Record standard, there's only about 10-ish, I think, 10 or 15 standards that are in this section, so you need to be able to meet all of them. Even though they're not STAR standards, you need to meet all of them, because if you don't meet 1 or 2 of them, your score goes down a lot. So we're going to talk about most, if not all, of these record standards tonight, so you make sure that you meet them all. 4.84 says the current daily or weekly menu is posted and shared with parents. Unless parents provide food, modifications are noted when changes occur. Usually this will not be met because parents complain about this in the parent surveys. They say, oh, I wish there was a menu either in a newsletter or posted on their bulletin board, so then I don't make spaghetti if they ate spaghetti today. So just make sure that you have a daily or weekly menu posted for parents to see. 4.26, the provider conducts monthly emergency drills and keeps a log, which includes the type of drill, date and time of drills practiced. 5.23, the program is covered by insurance, including accident insurance for children and assistants if employed, professional business liability insurance, and vehicle insurance. 5.23, having insurance is the most missed record standard. So please make sure that you have insurance for your program or for accidents. But yeah, are there any questions in regards to these standards? Another record standard that needs to be met is making sure that you have all of your policies written and available to parents. So she'll ask if insurance is required. Yes, insurance is required. It's not a starred standard, it's not a required standard, but because it's a record-keeping standard and there are so few of them, you really want to try to make and meet these 100%. You could, if you are 100% sure you're meeting the other ones and wanted to try to skip that one, you could, but your score is going to go down quite a bit. So I do highly recommend that you do meet all of these record standards. Okay, so, oh, I got some more questions. Do you need a separate policy for car insurance? If you have like a bundled insurance plan, that's fine. If you have a, oh, you're talking about this one. If you do drive children around, okay, yeah, thank you, Angela, you clarified the question for me. Yes, I would have a separate policy for car insurance, a different policy for how you are driving children around, if you're driving them around in a bus, if you're driving around in your certain car, when you're driving them, if it's just for field trips, if it's every day. Yeah, you want to be clear with the parents of the children that you're providing for and taking care of, that they know what the policy is, whether you're driving every day or just for field trips, that you have written permission such as that. Karen asks, I don't do conferences, but I do observations weekly, and if a parent wants to meet, I will set up after hours to meet their needs. Perfect. That's a great example of a policy that you can write down and provide for parents. Aisha says, I follow a continual weekly menu and give parents a copy to put on their fridge, a good topic for parents to recall events of the child care home. Great. That's a great way of having your menu available. Oh, can you hear me now, Tara? I may have just backed too far away from the computer. Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you can't hear me or I cut out, please let me know. So yes, so let's get back to standard 5.22, some policies that you'll want to have written down, but are definitely not limited to: substitute care arrangement, persons authorized to pick up child, illness, medication administration, emergencies, guidance and discipline, developmentally appropriate learning activities, use of screen media, parent participation in conference. We talked about transportation, field trips, religious activities, teaching styles. Maybe you want to have written different policies. Most providers will include all these policies when a child is enrolled, but of course, if you ever have changes in your program, you can always give out the new policy to your parents in your program, so they know what's going on in your program and that they are aware of the policies that are in your program. On Facebook a few months ago, we had a provider who was asking for help drafting a new policy for what is it called, for evicting, I don't know what the right word is, not evicting, but for yeah, I guess that's a good word, for evicting a current customer client of hers. They had a policy right now, and the parent wasn't complying with the policy, so she was rewriting it to make it more clear. And so make sure that your policies are well written and clear, and then if you need help, you can always reach out on our Facebook groups. Lots of providers are willing to help and give their input on these, since this is something that affects all providers, and we want to make sure we have good policies. Barbara says, for menus, she likes to send a text message to the parents at the end of the day so they know what meals that they had or they're going to have next day. That's a great idea, Barbara. Thanks for sharing. Okay, some other record standards. If you have an assistant, they need to have a written job description defining their responsibilities unless they're a family member. And then you'll want to, as a provider, conduct annual reviews of your assistant's job performance, and then just have that written down and kept in a log somewhere. 5.228, the provider keeps accurate daily attendance records of children making sure the children are signed in and out each time they enter or leave a program. This is really important for recording and for safety purposes. So make sure that you have those written down and kept in a safe place. Karen, some more suggestions I have coming in. Karen says that she sends pictures every day to the parents. That's great. Cindy asks for conferences. Is that area covered if you do observations weekly and go over it monthly with parents? Yes, absolutely. If you can let them know in your policy that that you do an observation weekly and that's something that they're aware of and they know about, so they don't come to you later complaining saying, hey, why aren't you here on these days? So yeah, have a policy for whatever you want. I always say that having written policies, more written policies maybe than you feel necessary, it's okay. The more you have written down and documented, the better. That way you have something to cover your butt if you ever need to. Alrighty, another record standard, the provider or sponsoring agency has a signed child care contract with each family. Your child care contract could include hours, fees, payment schedule, provider and child's vacation, provider and child's sick leave, responsibility for alternate care, termination policy. That's the word I was looking for, termination policy. That's what the provider on Facebook was asking about. They needed a new termination policy because they had a client that wasn't meeting other policies, and so she was trying to rewrite her termination policy and was asking for help on Facebook. So yeah, if you're ever unsure about how to word your contracts, or if you're just needing an extra helping hand, reach out to us on Facebook, and lots of providers are willing to help rewrite those with you. But just make sure that all of these record standards that we've talked about in these past 4 slides are being met, especially because there are so few of them. Most of these, because they're written things down, is something that you'll show to the observer at the time of your interview. Lots of providers will just keep all of this in a binder or on their computer on a file, so they can show the observer during the time of their interview. Here's all of my contracts, all of my policies, all those things. Yes, Cindy, on the next slide, I'm going to go ahead and show you all of our Facebook pages that you can be a part of. So that way you can receive aid from other providers. I have some questions, some comments coming in. Ostik, I hope I said your name right. She says, I have a family child care handbook. Perfect. If you have a handbook, that's a great thing you can show to the observer who's at your home. Aisha says, I hope I'm saying your name right too, Aisha. Aisha, yeah. Kid care program offer parents sign-in and sign-out electronic sign-ins. Perfect. Yeah, I know a lot of providers are now doing the electronic sign-in and sign-out. So if you have a tablet that you leave somewhere for the parents to sign in and sign out, you can show the observer that. Some providers worry that they need to print out and have paper on everything, but that's not necessarily true. If you have things electronically, that's totally fine. Alrighty, well, we've come to the end of our webinar. There's a lot of standards that we weren't able to talk about tonight just because there's so many. But if you do have more questions about standards that were not covered tonight, please don't despair. On this next slide, I'm going to show you all of our Facebook communities where you're welcome to ask as many questions as you want and receive more ideas and insights about the many right ways that other providers meet the quality standards. Are there any last questions about the standards we have covered tonight, or any standards that might be on your mind? As questions start to trickle in, I just want to show you a couple of things. So we have currently 4 different specific Facebook pages. Most of you, if you're starting accreditation for the first time, are probably on our NAFCC accreditation candidates in process page. This page is available to providers who are working on their accreditation for the first time and are looking for mentors and mentorship from other providers who have become accredited already. So this is a great place to start if you haven't joined one of our Facebook pages as of yet. If you are accredited, you do have the opportunity of being part of our NAFCC accredited providers page. You have to be accredited to be accepted onto this page, but this one is an awesome page where you can connect with providers who are already accredited and hear their advice and their stories. Both of those pages, the accreditation candidates in process page and the accredited providers page, are run and directed by me, so I keep an eye on those and I help answer questions as they come up if other providers don't answer them. If you're an observer and want to become part of our NAFCC observer page, we do have that observer page as well. And then if you are watching and you are a facilitation project or you enjoy mentoring others with their accreditation, we have the accreditation facilitation projects page that I also look over. Okay, I got some questions coming in. Can we have some of the interview questions? So I actually don't have access to interview questions, so I cannot give you some of them. I apologize. But most of I don't have the scripted interview questions. I think if I'm remembering off the top of my head, there's 15 of them, but I don't have a list of them. I wouldn't be able to tell you those, but everything else is non-scripted, and the questions will just be the provider asking, how do you meet the standard? And if they ask you that, it's probably because they didn't see it. And so that's your chance to be able to talk about the standards and how you meet it in your program. Karen asks, I don't do teeth brushing at home. My parents prefer to do it at home. What do I do so I don't get dinged? There is a new standard about teeth brushing for those who aren't aware. It's not a required standard, so you don't necessarily have to do it. Some suggestions that I've seen and heard from other providers, you can choose to, I've seen some, they'll actually go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. Some providers will just, after meal times, they'll give a little cup of water and a little toothbrush to everybody, and they just dip their toothbrush in there and do a quick brush with the water, and that counts as their toothbrushing, or they'll swish the water around in their mouth and count that. The real goal of the teeth brushing is to make sure that you're teaching dental hygiene, and that's important that we keep our mouths and our teeth clean. So if anyone else has any other suggestions on what they do to meet the teeth brushing standard, go ahead and chime in, but those are just a couple of ideas that I've heard from some providers, Karen. I wouldn't be extremely stressed out about it if you're not doing it, but it never hurts to at least have like a cup of water to swish or something. Or if you have a little disposable toothbrush that you have, everyone has their little toothbrush and they just do a quick brush after meals. It doesn't need to be a whole routine if you don't want it to be. Perlene, I'm glad you enjoyed the webinar. I'm glad it was informative. These are new webinars that we've designed, so if you do have any questions or comments or concerns or suggestions to make these better as you listen to them, please let me know. These were designed within the past few months based off of things that I've heard since I've started here at NAFCC in an attempt to try to help providers such as yourself in the accreditation journey, since we know that it is quite daunting at times. So let me know if there's any suggestions that you would make, and I would be happy to add them to the PowerPoints. Maria asks, how can I have the previous webinars? So right after I answer some of these questions, actually I'll show you right now. I'm going to show you and everybody our website on how you can have access to the webinars. I'll show you our YouTube page, and I'll also show you how to access the webinar. So I'm just going to pop out of here for a second so I can answer your question. If you go on to our NAFCC site, up here at the top, I'll use my pen, here on accreditation, if you hover over that, you'll have a drop down that says achieving and maintaining accreditation, and then you go down to the second option that says accreditation webinars. You'll have this accreditation webinar page pop up, and will have all the presentations that we are giving live, and so you can click on the individual registration links. We currently have webinars for those starting self-study and have questions about self-study. We have ones that talk about creating your development plan and self-study, the application, the no-fail observation visit, preparing for and filling out the update, and then of course one we're having right now, the most missed standards webinar. So if there's webinars that you want to attend, I would highly suggest the live ones. That way you can ask your questions. But if you've missed them and you need to go and find recordings, you can either find your recordings on YouTube, just looking up the name of the webinar, or you can go to our website on our Facebook pages, and they're there. Or here, let me go back so you can have all those listed. Or you can, yeah, visit our Facebook pages, and I like to put them on there. Or if you happen to have self-study, your eSelf-Study portal does have all the recordings on the eSelf-Study, and you can have access to all the recordings there as well. Karen is asking, oh, in regards to teeth brushing, what is the age required? I don't know if I remember off the top of my head if there's an age or not, if anyone wants to help me. I don't think there's an age. I think it just says that you're teaching dental hygiene, so I don't think there's an age, but I can look that up really quickly in just a minute after I answer some of these other questions, but I don't believe that there's an age, if I'm remembering correctly. Renata says, I would like to fax in a copy of my transcript to find out how many hours count towards the CEUs. Yes, the best person to email your transcript to would be either Fernanda Melchor or myself. Our emails are listed here on this slide, so go ahead and email either her or I, and we can count your hours for you and let you know how many CEUs you have. Aisha says that they like to brush teeth after nap time. That's a great routine. I like that idea. I know lots of providers also like to do it right after mealtime, so right before nap time, after mealtime are all great times to have that routine in. Oh, you're welcome, Barbara. I'm glad you like the information. Karen as well, I'm glad you like the information. Cindy asked, toothbrushing is 1 time per day, correct? Yes. Yeah, at least once a day. You could do more if you wanted to, but we're really just looking for at least once. Make sure that you're helping them understand the importance of dental hygiene, as we mentioned. Alrighty, I'm really glad that everybody enjoyed the webinar. I've gotten some good comments, so thank you so much. Just so you're aware, I will be saving the recording tonight. It usually takes all night to save the recording because it's pretty long, but tomorrow morning I'll go ahead and post the recording and the PowerPoint slides onto the accreditation candidates process page, as well as the accredited providers page. And then I'll go ahead and email you as well the slides and email you your proof of attendance. The proof of attendance usually doesn't make your way to you until later tomorrow evening, so don't fret if you don't see it right away tomorrow morning. But yeah, it usually takes a little while for all those to get sent out. But know that that should be to you by tomorrow evening at the latest. And then if you have any other questions that weren't answered tonight, go ahead and feel free to either email me at my email, call me, or you can also reach out to Alicia Platt, who's our Accreditation Operations Manager, Fernanda Melchor, who works on updates and applications, or Maria Velasco, who works on the observation part of the accreditation. Alexis, you are listening to Marissa Gallegos. I'm the third gal down. I do most of the presentations. Alicia sometimes does them. We switch off doing these webinars, but most of the time it'll be me presenting the webinars. And you're welcome to everyone who's saying thank you. Anne Marie asks, thinking about removing a toy from the daycare area that was mouthed by a child, shouldn't the provider go and wash her hands? Yes, yes, that's a great one. Yes, you listened, yay. Yes, so when you're touching, after touching spit, I think that is, yeah, that is one of the things that it says in the standard that we talked about, hand washing, one of the STAR standards. You do want to wash your hands after touching a mouth toy. So yes, wash your hands. But if you don't want to sanitize and wash the toy at that specific moment, you can just keep it in a bucket or keep it somewhere away from other children until you do have time to sanitize it. But if you do want to wash and sanitize it at that same moment, you are welcome to do so. Barbara says you missed info about the CEUs. There was just a provider who asked. They were not sure if they have enough CEUs for their application. So she's just going to send us an email with her transcript. So if anyone is concerned about CEUs, wondering if they have enough CEUs for their application, you can either send your transcripts to me, Marissa Gallegos, or you can send your transcripts to Fernanda Melchor or even Alicia Platt. She can check those for you, but Alicia's a little bit busier, so it might take her a little bit longer. So I recommend Fernanda or myself to check CEUs for you. Deanne Jones, yes, there will be a replay. I was just showing everybody how to find our webinars online. I can just quickly show you again. But I did mention that if you did miss tonight or if you're wanting to re-listen, I will have the recording of this presentation on the NAFCC Accreditation Candidates in Process page, as well as the NAFCC Accredited Providers page tomorrow morning. And then there is a chance if you do want to hear it live again, we do have this specific presentation every month, the fourth Monday of the month. Let me exit out of here again and I can show you. So we do have the NAFCC accreditation webinars page. To get there, you go accreditation, hover down to achieving and maintaining accreditation, and then you have the accreditation webinars page. And then here is where you can register for separate webinars. And so specifically the standards webinar, we do have that every month. So if you want to hit a live session again, since you missed this one, you're more than welcome to do that. Renate says, I need to fax. I don't know how to email the transcript. Oh, if you need to fax, our fax number, here, I'll put it in the chat, our fax number. Perfect, I just sent in the chat. Our fax number is 801-886-2325. And then you can just put attention to Marissa Gallegos or attention to Fernanda Melchor. Either of those will work. Asha says, I missed the webinar on October 17th. That was one that Alicia presented. I was out of town on vacation. She told me this morning that she was going to put the recording out within this next couple days, that she was just editing it a little bit. So just keep your eyes peeled on the accreditation page, the NAFCC Accredited Providers page, and that one will be available soon on our Facebook page as well as on YouTube. So just keep your eyes out for that one. I'll check on that with her tomorrow too, but just know that that won't be out within the next couple days as well. Barbara asked if you need an official transcript. No, you don't need an official transcript, but just make sure that the transcript that you do send to us to check your CEUs has the date and the amount of hours you received and the name of the course or who taught the course. And yes, Miranda, no worries. I will email everyone the PowerPoints tomorrow. It's late here, so I'll do it all tomorrow. No worries. I'll get it to everybody. Alrighty, so I have gone a little over time, so I am going to go ahead and end the webinar in just a minute unless there's any other last lingering questions. Thank you again for your attendance and for your continual participation and comments and letting me know about these webinars and whether you're enjoying them or not. So I hope to see you guys on the Facebook pages and also on future webinars. Thank you and have a great night.